Hello, and welcome to today's After Church Tea Time. My name is Deanna, and today I am joined by Lisi and Andia. Hi, ladies.
Hi.
Hey.
So today we will be discussing a really powerful sermon by Laurentiu and Alexandra, The Secrets of Healing Cycles. But before we jump into the sermon, let's just take a moment to share what we're drinking for tea time today. Who wants to go first?
I guess I'll go. I'm drinking sweet potato pie black tea.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's really good. If you guys haven't tried David's tea, it's like a British company and they have like very interesting flavors. So recommend it.
I will.
Nice.
Okay. I hope I'm not going to be excommunicated for this, but I have a coffee.
How dare you.
I have a Panera coffee because it's I love Panera.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And today I treated myself to some Panera breakfast. And I got some coffee and I put a little splash of non-dairy silk creamer. So delicious.
Good. Yeah.
So for me, admittedly, I'm not a big tea drinker. I'm from the South, and so the only tea I really know is like sweet tea, right? Which is black tea with like a whole bunch of sugar. So I'm not the biggest tea drinker. So just like you, Lizzie, I've got my coffee from today. But yeah, still just as good.
Yeah, coffee's okay. Be coffee.
Yeah.
It's like the tea of the cafe bean.
Yeah,
Like
there
it's
you
not
go.
it's
mean,
made
it
the
is,
same
yeah.
way. Yeah, the infusion of water and
Yeah. So it's all the same. Yeah, right? Okay. Awesome. Yeah, so now that we're a bit more grounded into the conversation, we can hop on into that really great sermon today. So ladies, what were some of your insights and takeaways?
I have so many.
Yeah.
I love Alexandra and Laurentiu are my coaches, and I really enjoy what every time they share. I think there are so many insights, but I'll just start with like kind of what they shared at first. One of the things that Alexandra shared early on was like she was having upsets that she was upset. And they were just talking really about like the cycle of like, you have progress on your twin flame journey, whatever that is. It could be with your twin flame, it could be with your wealth, your life purpose. And then there's like moving forward, and then what appears to be like a setback. And Alexandra was just saying, well, that's normal. Like when you call in that great love, you're gonna get that the stuff that's not aligned with it coming up. And it doesn't mean, I think the important thing that they talked about was like, it doesn't mean that you're doing a bad job. It doesn't mean you're failing. It just means like, it actually means it's a sign that you're moving forward. So that I really appreciated that. And I think I have experienced being upset that I was upset. And that just hindered me from healing. So, just letting go and having compassion for myself was really key, just like what Alexandra shared.
Yeah, I definitely feel like that that part specifically stood out to me as well, because it's something that especially in the beginning when I first started working with my coach, she would always tell me like, you're just so annoyed that you're upset. And like you, at least for me personally, you go into this journey with one thing, like thinking that it's going to be one thing, and like, oh, initially it's all about like this person that is your twin flame, and you just need help with all the things that are coming up. But like the deeper I've gotten into it, I see that it's so much more than just having this relationship with this person. Like you're really I mean, it's really just about coming home to God and like coming to all these places that I've ignored for a very long time. And, you know, like you said, Lacey, like you're like calling in like that big love, like that true love. It's, and so like, obviously, naturally, things that are very difficult, very hard, it's going to be very uncomfortable. Um, and like, I've definitely found that just like letting go and kind of like expecting it to be this way. Like I kind of also like that they mentioned the roller coaster, like the ups and downs, because I think that was like uh, a part that would kind of throw me off as well. Like, oh, I've been having, you know, like a few really good weeks, and then all of a sudden I feel really, really bad, you know, and it would always make me feel like something, like I did something wrong, or like, am I not doing the mirror exercise right? Is there like a part of me that I'm ignoring? And now, you know, and like just hearing them talk about it was really affirming, because I feel like I've kind of been grounding into this space where like this is just what it's like. There's this rhythm to it. There is like a cycle to it. And like now, like I feel like now, like I was like I'm surprised that like some of my worst days actually turn out to be like the best days. I don't know if that makes sense, but like really just acknowledging that there's like a natural flow to your healing, and so much of it like is not in your control. It's a really nice place to just kind of like let go of and, you know, heal, like Alexandria talked about. Bring some love to that place.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I couldn't agree more. And like the two of you were saying, this sermon was just so jam-packed with juicy nuggets. And I took a lot of notes, and I almost want to go back and like reread the excerpt that she mentioned from the book, and then go back and watch the sermon again, just because like there was just so many good reminders. And I definitely resonate with being upset with being upset, right? And the way that Laurentiu and Alexandra just kind of reminded us that, hey, this is the process and it's a cycle, and it's going to come up over and over and over again, right? And um, as you're calling in your twin flame, this is what it looks like. And I really like how they really talked about the twin flame journey. And it brought a lot of insights into my own twin flame journey, because it made me think, well, yeah, like, am I ready to have such a huge amplification, like what Alexandra was saying, of myself through my twin flame, right? Um, and am I really healing just even in physical separation? Am I choosing to go all in my healing? Because that's what you have to do when you're in union. So it just made me think a lot, like, okay, I've got a lot of work to do, but it's okay for me to have compassion for myself. And I don't have to be upset that, you know, the upsets are coming up, because this is a part of the journey.
Yeah, that reminds me of something Jeff and Shaleia shared. It's a quote, and they said, "You don't want what you want before you're ready." And that was so true. And I look back on my past, and I think I can see it clearly now, although I'm still learning and unpacking it. But um, I got together with my twin flame uh, when I thought I was ready, and I thought that, hey, this is it. We're in harmonious twin flame union. And then once that happened, all this stuff came up, like trauma, trauma patterns. Not that, we were just expressing trauma like effects in our responses and reactions to each other, and that because of that, because it was unhealed, our union wasn't stable, and so we fell out of harmony. But for a long time I felt like I had messed up and failed and done something wrong. But if I, now that I have some space between me and the past, I look back and I'm like, it couldn't have done any other way. But now that I've learned and had some wisdom, I know that, I don't want something before I'm ready, before I've laid the foundation all the way. And there's no way to know that you've laid the foundation all the way until you just try it, right? Like I think sometimes we can get into analysis paralysis, or like, I've got to be careful not to go in too fast. So you can kind of like stumble on your carefulness. I mean, there's just one thing is that you can't hurt yourself on your twin flame journey. Like you're not going to get hurt. But I do, hindsight's 2020. So I do want to say, it is an amplification of yourself. And if you don't know yourself, you're going to see parts of you that you don't know need healing. And sometimes, that's like, whoa, 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 this is me. No, it's not. No, it's not. No way. But I don't do that. I've spent a few months saying that to myself. But the thing is, like, you don't know what you don't know until you know it. And so I just had to go through it, and that's okay. I look where I am now is where I wanted to be, but through this process I learned, oh, foundation needs to be laid, and it's okay. I had compassion for myself because I didn't know, and now I learned. So that's it.
Yeah, I really resonate with that, because I feel like I went through am going through a very similar thing in terms of like my twin flame and I came together and things were good. And then all of a sudden, we started really amplifying the not so happy parts of ourselves and the parts that like really still needed loving. And neither of us had the tools. So it just was not compassionate. But, I understand that now, but like when I first found this work, it was just a lot of like analysis paralysis, like you said, like, what did I do wrong? Why did we have to separate? Like, why did I make that choice? Is that really me? I can't believe that's me. Like all these like, it's just like kind of like a tornado in your mind of like just, and I realized like that was just like me kind of like resisting the love, because at the end of the day, that's like really all it is. They are showing you exactly where you need to go to heal those places so you guys can come together in like a healthy way, because that's your natural state. Like it's, meant to be this way. We were created this way. But like not really understanding what needs to be done, or even like what the cycle looks like, or, that, separation is actually really an illusion, but sometimes having that like physical distance can help. And sometimes it is the best thing for that moment. Like obviously it's not ideal and you don't want to stay there, but I had a hard time like really coming to peace with that and just receiving the love that is like coming to me in this moment of my life, even though sometimes my mind's like, well, this isn't ideal. Like, why are we here? But I have to remind myself like, well, this is part of it. And, I'm never separate from him. Like we're doing the things together. It's just, like right now, there's just like this physical illusion that we're separate. And so like the day-to-day stuff I'm not aware of, but like, even that is like not important. I don't need to know. I'm like, there's so much in this moment for me, and letting go of that control I don't know. It just changes everything so much.
Yeah, something you said there, Andia, really stood out to me. Like where you said physical separation can be beneficial, right? And it makes me think about what Alexandra was talking about in the sermon when she mentioned spiritual backlog. And I'm not as familiar with it. So that was kind of I'm still kind of learning what that means. So I'm kind of actually curious like you two what your take on spiritual backlog is, because when she was discussing it, she was saying that you know, when you and your twin come together and then all the upsets come up and then they kind of go away and then there's this kind of back and forth, it can be due to spiritual backlog. And so what I kind of took that as is this like the upsets come up when you're close to your twin, and then I guess you have to take time to heal that on your own. But I imagine you can also do it with your twin. So it's just kind of healing that separation.
Mhm.
Yeah, a spiritual backlog is when you're not doing your inner work for every upset and they pile up like dirty laundry and
Mm.
or dirty dishes. And oh my gosh, I do have to share this for comic relief. Has anyone ever seen What We Do in the Shadows?
Yes.
Okay, do you know the dish scene? Where they've got the 500 years of dishes covered because they're vampires, so they're covered in blood, and they get really mad at each other because they didn't do their dishes. Anyway, it's like that, but with inner work. And so, like, if you're not prepared, like if you're not mastered to the degree that you need to be, in order to be around your twin flame physically all the time, um, then it is compassionate to have some space, so that you can kind of process what they're showing you. But eventually, you do get to the point of a certain particular level of mastery that only is between you and God, like what you actually need to, you don't need to be perfect, like an ascended master, because you're designed to ascend to God together with your twin flame. But it's just this tipping point where you're able to do your inner work for every upset that they show you rather than to like get overwhelmed. It's like an analogy reminds me of like if you're ever at the beach and you're trying to surf, and for so many times, maybe you catch a wave every once in a while, but most of the time you're getting knocked over. And that's kind of like what it's like before you develop your mastery enough to be able to surf the waves that come in.
Yeah.
Um, and I think like it that was challenging for me when I was in union in the past, because I hadn't developed my sea legs. I did get knocked over by these waves that came. I didn't know they were there, but um, now it's different. It's in my union, in my particular union, which everyone's is different, but in our house, Josh and I have separate bedrooms. And this is so that there's a place for us to go if we do feel that like backlog sense. And we do stay in the same bedroom several nights a week, but then other nights we don't. So this is what is compassionate for my particular union at this point in time. Um, it may not always be that. That's not where it's going to complete. I also remember Jeff and Shaleia used to have separate offices, and now I believe that they have one office, and they didn't need to have separate offices. So it's just like this evolving into being able to be together. Um, so yeah, it's just there's a lot of like letting go of how you think it should look and not try to force yourself to like be physically with your twin flame in a certain way if you're not able to process what they're showing you at the rate that you need to in order to be like that with them. Just take it as it comes and be compassionate with yourself.
Yeah, that's perfect. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I definitely that was the feeling before uh I found this work, because I met my twin flame 2 years before, and then we were together, and then we, separated, and there was something inside of me like, no, like this, there has to be more. Like this, everything was so different with this person. This can't just be like the end of it. And so I found Jeff and Shaleia in 2017. But at that point, I was just still kind of like just watching videos. I really wasn't thinking like I need more help than that until I met him. And, you know, now looking back, I feel like it just all was supposed to lead me here. Like there was a plan in all of it. And so, yeah, like I really like what you said about kind of like letting go of what it was supposed to look like, or you think it's supposed to look like. Because for both me and my twin, we've had a lot of like unprocessed emotions from past relationships that we were just kind of carrying in. And obviously, it's going to be very uncomfortable. And it just reached a point where it was just too much for us to, you know, continue to be together. And I used to think that was like because, you know, he made the decision. And for the longest time, it was like, oh, you made the wrong decision. You know, this wasn't right. And I even had like a lot of upsets with God. Like, you know, why did this have to happen? Like, I can't believe this happened. Like, what did I do wrong? And honestly, now it's like the best thing that could have happened. And, you know, we're still moving through it because it's relatively, I guess, fresh if you want to like put some like, I don't know, I know time is an illusion, but like put perspective on it. So, you know, we're still moving through it. And honestly, like when they brought up the topic in the sermon about like, are you prepared to be that close to your twin flame and like experience those upsets coming up? Like, you know, honestly, I've gotten to the point where I'm like, I don't know, you know, like it's like really between like, that's God's decision. And, you know, I've like given it to God. And because I think for a long time, thinking about these things would kind of like take me out of my, you know, like my own presence and like focusing on that. And I really feel like that's like in my union now, like that's what God is calling me, is just to like focus on yourself, learn to just be present with yourself, and, you know, and give yourself all those things that you think you've needed from, you know, other people, like your man. Because, you know, that's really what it was. I like there were so many like codependent sort of patterns that like I wasn't addressing, and just having this time on my own to deal with my stuff and like come to a place where I like enjoy my company and like feel good just by myself. Like it's the biggest gift. I never thought I would. I don't like, I'm getting a little emotional talking about it, but I sorry. Like I never thought I would be saying that, because for a long time there was just so much anger around how things are happening. But once you like let go of that, it's like everything is fine. Like, you know, like the whole good and bad dichotomy that we put on things, it's such an illusion because like if you just give into what is happening in front of you in your life, like you see that like everything is perfect and it's all good. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get emotional.
No, yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I definitely resonate with just kind of surrendering to where God, you know, has me on this journey right now. And not judging myself, not judging the upsets, not judging the fact that I'm in physical separation or seeing it as a bad thing. But like you said, just being present with myself and practicing like really loving and honoring myself where I am right now, and
Yeah.
appreciating everything about me that I want my twin flame to appreciate, you know, starting within. Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's really what it's about, you know. It's like I said, you go in thinking it's like about another person, but then you realize it's really just about you, and that you're worthy of going through whatever you need to go through, you know, like all the ups and the downs, like the cycles, however many cycles, you know, there needs to be. It's, you know, it's all good, because you really are exactly where you need to be at all times. it's such a downer to like keep telling yourself, you know, like, oh, this is not this is not where I need to be, you know. It's yeah, it's I feel like it's so much harder. I personally would get so drained, you know, like I would just like wake up some mornings and God, like why do I feel so drained? But it's because you're constantly like you know resisting the current, the flow of your life.
So true.
Yeah, resistance is what drains you, not the thing that you need to move through. But
Yeah.
India, speaking to your what you were sharing, like this, the teachings of union that Jeff and Shaleia has shared with all of us, it is something remarkable. And it's a very appropriate reaction to be kind of emotional when you realize that, oh my God, this is what I've been striving my whole life for, to feel this way and to love myself in this way. And it's like, it's a feeling of coming home to love that, it's like the feeling that you see soldiers have when they come home at the airport and they run into their loved one's arms. It's like that coming home feeling and such a relief. So
Yeah.
yeah, I know the feeling, and I'm like kind of tearing up a little bit too. But it's something, once you really realize how profound and the teachings of union and the teachings that love you are, it's like you just want everyone to have that. And I think that's
Yeah.
such a beautiful like reaction. So I appreciate what you shared.
Yeah, and just checking in on the comments. Alexandra says emotions are okay. Part of
Just ask my coach. I cry in every session. I'm always crying.
Oh my gosh, same. Like I come in, I'm like, haha, I'm not gonna cry. I'm doing great today. And like somehow Alexandra always gets me into that place. I have like I've invested in some handkerchiefs
Oh, nice.
because I would go through tissue boxes like one a session. Not that I wasn't sad or hurt. It was like I was releasing so much. So
Yeah.
huge props, sacred twin flame
Right.
reality.com. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, and one of the things you mentioned earlier made me think about something that Jeff talks about in the classes, the dirty dish analysis, or what is it? Analogy? Yeah, it made me think about where Jeff talks about how like the healing process can be like when your drains are clogged, and like once you start to unclog it, it just comes like more and more and more starts to come up, and how that's kind of similar to the healing journey. And it also makes me think about something that Alexandra mentioned in the sermon, where she was saying like people come into this work and they're like, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be feeling better, but I'm having more and more and more and more upsets. Like it feels like things are getting worse. But it's really just, we were like numb in that space, right? And these upsets have been there. And now we're actually feeling our feelings. And like Laurentiu and Alexandra was saying, like, as you heal, your vibration raises and you become more sensitive. And so you notice the upsets a lot more. And so it's not that there are more upsets than there were before. It's just that you're actually feeling it more, and you're unclogging that drain finally and seeing like how much gunk there really was that was there. And it makes me think of this other example that I brought up before, but I'm a big Grey's Anatomy fan. And so, like on that show, they'll have people who come in, like let's just say they've been shot or something like that. Like when they come in and they've been hurt in that way, their adrenaline is rushing. And so they can't even really feel the pain because they're in that like fight or flight mode. And their adrenaline is like stopping them from feeling the pain. But it's not until that they've relaxed and that they have people and doctors around them that are helping them to heal, and they're like in that safe space, that they kind of, the adrenaline releases, and then they actually feel how much pain they've been in. And that reminds me so much of this journey, because it's like we can sometimes be in that fight or flight mode. And it's not until we relax and we're in a supportive environment where people and coaches and our gurus are around us to help us that we're like, oh crap, I'm in a lot of pain. But that pain has always been there. We just, weren't really feeling it.
Yeah. And I will say it's very worth it to feel bad. So just, I mean, as long as you're moving through it, obviously, but yeah, like I have experienced that myself. I see it a lot in like the open forum and or just everywhere. Like, there's like a resistance to people feeling their feelings, and especially, the bad feelings, but that's where all like the juicy stuff is. Like that's, that you have to, like, whether you're aware of your twin flame or not, like it's worth it to address those things, because it's, as Jeff has said in like the TFAS classes, like it's, you think that like you feel depressed and that's what it is, but really it's like that depression is just like pushing you closer to that joy, or the feeling of hopelessness is just bringing you more hope. And when you start to like see it that way, it's like you said, Deanna, it's like there's like this sense of relief almost, and like release. Like when you cry, it's not because you're feeling sad or joy, it's just like this like feeling of like, oh my God, like I can let this go, I can put it down. And as my coach always says, like inner work is so fun. And I used to like not get it because I'm like, okay, whatever. Like but now when she says it, like I'm like, yeah, it is, because like I said, like I've lived most of my life just like so, numbed out to myself and like ignoring myself in like a really like fundamental way. And like having an opportunity to like heal that and like see that and understand that, like why wouldn't you want to do that for yourself, and then like the cherry on top is that like you realize that like you have everything, like you're God's child, and that like actually means something. Like I've heard that before, like it's a thing that you hear a lot, but like actually understanding what it means, and like understanding what it means to be a divine creature, like that is your essence, and there's like power in that. It's like it, I don't know, like it's really humbling and amazing to like realize that. And like I said earlier, like whatever I need to do to go deeper in this, it's totally worth it, even if half the week I feel like crap. It's fine.
I mean, it is fine on one hand, but it also definitely have said like you don't have to feel bad.
Yeah,
Like
sure.
it's more like like you said, like the bad feelings are leaving and you're inviting more love. That Shaleia also says that in the Romance Attraction e-course. It's the love returning. So I think like one of the things I wanted to share is about your subconscious, and it's called subconscious for a reason. Like it's what you don't see about yourself. And I think a lot of people are like, well, I have this awareness of myself, and that's true of what you see, but there's this whole place that you don't see, and that's exactly what the teachings of union guide you to see. And your twin flame, being your ultimate lover and mirror, is going to reflect those places that you can't see already about yourself to you for healing. And so I think, some people may feel a little daunted, like, well, how much am I not seeing? And like Laurentia and Alexandra said, you just unpack that at a compassionate pace. Like you go one step at a time, unpacking it. And it's a beautiful, loving process, just like what you were sharing, India.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I was one of those people that was like, well, how much am I not seeing? And when does it stop? Because in the beginning it just felt like a lot. And that was a part of my upset, being upset about being upset. And I really had to choose to be compassionate with myself and with the pace of my journey. Because I was one of those people that wanted everything right here, right now. And I wanted the fastest way, and I wanted to just get to the finish line. But what my coaches had to remind me is that there is no finish line per se. Like it's a constant dance with God that you're doing. And you're in union right now, like you're perfect right now. You're with God right now. You don't have to rush to get to that because you're already there. And it's just a matter of kind of surrendering to that. So that's kind of what I've been practicing. It's just like having that compassion and being patient with myself and with where I am in the journey, and knowing that it's perfect, it's okay. Awesome. So how are you ladies feeling about the discussion? Any other insights or takeaways? Are you starting to feel complete?
I feel complete.
Yeah, same. It's been really great.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It was just such a jam-packed sermon. And like I said before, I'm probably gonna go back and watch it just to get some more from it. It was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for joining today's discussion. Thank you to everyone who joined us live. We really appreciate your presence and participation. If you are joining from our YouTube page, or excuse me, if you're joining from our Facebook page, we invite you to jump over to our YouTube page, where you will see a lot of our other previous discussions, and just a bunch of juicy content from the Church of Union. And with that, we will wrap up this discussion. Thank you, everyone. See you next time.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.